Hello and welcome to my videocast for 205 CDE. In this video I'll be covering web servers, security, data store design, CRUD and NoSQL, accessing and displaying data on a web page, and inputting data from a web page to store, this including validation of that data. The software that I used to complete the labs and implementation was Codio, Google App Engine, GitLab and Brackets. The first of the 6 topics that I'll be covering is web servers. The first task that I carried out was forking Mark's Git repository. The purpose of this is that I will have an existing project rather than an empty project. This gives me a code base which I can then edit and change relevant to my own project. The next stage was to clone the repository. I created a new project and imported the same project as I just forked. I gave the project a name and set the visibility to public. Installing the Google App Engine SDK for Python is the next task. This has to be installed before the app can run. To install the SDK, I entered the following command: parts install Google App Engine. The Codio parts tool is used to install the Google App Engine SDK. This process was lengthy as there are several tasks that have to be completed. These are extracting, installing, activating, and then the Google App Engine should be installed. I carried out some local testing. This was to ensure the code works before I started making any changes. I then went to view my local site. To do this, I selected Configure. I configured 2 options. These were both local app page and then local admin page. I then had to deploy my app to Google server. The first step was to create a new application, then try to create an application identifier that hasn't already been taken. Once the identifier had been selected, I gave the application a title and then clicked Create Application. The second of the 6 topics that I'll be covering is security. Security is important for many different reasons. There are ways with Codio and the Google App Engine that applications and projects can be kept secure. When creating the projects, you have the option to make the project visible to public or private. There are also the use of SSH, which is Secure Shell Keys, and HTTPS, which is Hypertext Transfer Protocol Secure. Here, I've used a login feature. This is another method of security. To be able to leave feedback, the user must have an account and a valid email address. If the user doesn't enter an email address when attempting to log in, they are prompted to enter a valid email. They aren't able to leave feedback until they have done so. Once the user has successfully logged in, the user can then leave feedback, press submit for the feedback to be sent to the data store. The third of the 6 topics that I'll be covering is accessing and displaying data in a web page. The first thing I had to do was create a new project. I did this by opening the Google App Engine Launcher software and adding a new project. I then had to select an application name and give the application directory. I then press Create. During any project, it is important that an existing project can be added. Also, able to delete the project. Google App Engine makes this easy. The next stage is to deploy the app onto the cloud. The purpose of this is because at the minute I'm the only person with access to the project. If I have group members that will require access, this is granted by deploying the Google Cloud. Another application identifier has to be created and then another title for the application. Once these are done, the application can be created. Transferring local files to Codio. Now the local version of the apps has been set up, the next step is to move the project to a remote Codio server, so again the other group members can edit the project. The fourth of the 6 topics that I will be covering is inputting data from a web page to the store. I am now creating a simple feedback form. To be able to do this, I have used a def-get-self method in the request handler. This is so that the page displays a form. The code is then run and viewed in the browser. There is then a box available for users to enter comments and press the submit feedback button. I am now implementing the form handler. The current method in the request handler getSelf. To respond to a post method, I need to add another method called postSelf. If users are logged in, then the user is able to proceed. However, if they aren't, then the user is redirected to the login page. Once the user has submitted their feedback, a short message is supplied saying, "Thank you for leaving your feedback." If the user has completed the feedback submission, then the user is redirected. To be able to complete the feedback form, the user must log in with a valid email address, as the validation states. I have entered my full email address and have pressed login. Once that is complete, I am redirected to a feedback page. The fifth of the 6 topics that we're covering is CRUD and NoSQL. CRUD is an acronym for Create, Retrieve, Update and Delete. Create uses put method, read uses the get method, update uses post method, and delete uses delete method. NoSQL is a database mechanism for data retrieval. This is used in relational databases, but it isn't tabular. Handlers are used to direct appropriate URLs to the folder. I added this to the app.yaml file. The most specific URLs are at the top of the app.yaml. I use the URL for pics. This URL looks in the thumbnail file. The image to the right of the code shows a picture from the thumbnails folder. This is viewed in live feed in the browser. The next task involved me creating a style sheet folder. I then added a new file to the folder. As you can see in the app.yaml file, I created a static CSS file. This is positioned just below the previous handler, which was pics. The screenshot at the top right shows that I've linked to the style sheet. This is by using a link tag. I then viewed the page in the browser as a welcome WA screenshot demonstrates. To be able to create full applications, I have had to add more pages. I have added root to load page2.py file. I then changed this handler so that it responds to the URL link in the app.yaml. The WA page 2 is now shown below. A URL segment is a way of passing a variable to a page by modifying part of the URL. An example of this is a unique ISBN number. I then created a new script called book. I then had to change the existing matcher, anything in brackets, are assigned to a specific variable. The below screenshot is a view of the book star in the browser. Using Ginger 2, I created a new folder called templates. In that folder I created a file, called it book.html. I then imported the Ginger 2 library in the app.yaml file. I created a Ginger 2 environment variable and added it before the main handler class. I changed the get method to load the book.html file. I then viewed the book.html file in the The first thing I had to do was edit the app.yaml file and add an author handler. After this, I then created a new Python file and called it authors.py. I then designed the form. This is under main template. Each time the submit button is pressed, the post method is called. A new account object is created and it is set the same properties. This is the feedback form in the browser under the authors.py file. As the flow diagram shows, I started off with a very simple form, then added a message stating that we have the following. I then created it on my website. The screenshot at the bottom is that of a data store viewer. This is where I can see all the submissions have been left. Thank you for watching my videocast.